Your hometown radio station, 97.9 The Hill, WCHL, Chapel Hill. Streaming live on chapelboro.com.
Coming to you straight from the heart of Chapel Hill in the 97.9 The Hill WCHL studios from the independent voice of UNC Sports, covering everything from Amos to Zwicker. This is Inside Carolina Live. And now the hosts of Inside Carolina Live, Tommy Ashley and Joey Powell.
I'm not gonna let them catch me, no. Not gonna let them catch me, midnight rider.
Inside Carolina Live. February 18th. No basketball game today because the basketball game of note is tomorrow.
They won't lose today, Tommy.
It will not lose today. Joey, this is Positivity Day.
All right, I'll see you later.
We're going to bring all the complete positive stuff.
I did not agree to that.
It's a big day. It's big sports day and a big sports weekend in this area. I don't know about what everybody else is doing. Carolina baseball started yesterday. We'll not talk about that too much. That was not a good start. Hurricanes play outside in Raleigh and North Carolina State at 1 o'clock on Sunday in a must-win game for North Carolina's NCAA tournament hopes. What do you think, Joey? Oh, hold on. Daniel Myrick, Nia Satterfield Brown, Joey Powell, I'm Tommy Ashley, and of course Johnny T-Shirt, as always, sponsoring us. Joey.
Yes. You serious this time? You ready for me?
100%. Don't let me step on toes.
Forgive Tommy. My man has been scrambling around here like a chicken with his head cut off trying to get some technological things fixed because he is the ace that makes the YouTube work so we can be broadcast in a visual medium for folks who want to see us, which I still don't understand that, but whatever. Tommy, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, and this may be an unpopular take, but I'm just going to let you know how I feel. I think the Tar Heels are going to go into Raleigh tomorrow and get boat raced. You can call it, say I'm ruining your positivity pod, but Sherelle McMillan and Sean Moran joined me for the post game after the Miami loss on Monday night. And Sherelle made a great point that the atmosphere, the outside intangibles, the sheer amount of hate, and the fact that NC State has a good ball club this year and is getting healthy versus a Tar Heel team that has shown no aptitude for consistency, has continuously gone number one down their legs when it mattered, and they're going into an environment where you guarantee that everybody put the proverbial nail in the coffin and in the hearts of this Tar Heel basketball squad. That is not a good recipe for the visiting team.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter?
It doesn't matter what they'd like to do.
No, but all of that together, you can't separate any of that.
I think the more pressure you can put on NC State about they got to win this game, the better.
Yeah, but they don't have to win this game. They're in the tournament no matter what.
They need to win this game for their sanity.
Oh, well, that's
and all that.
Since when is sanity on the table for that bunch?
That's a valid point. But I mean,
I saw a tweet stream yesterday of a noted NC State historian, and he said this, and I'm assuming he meant it with a straight face, that Reynolds Coliseum was the most important building ever paid for with state dollars.
Reynolds Coliseum was the most important
building ever built with state dollars.
I was there 2 days ago, and let me say that building is nice. It is.
What they've done with that building is nice.
Right, but that wasn't his comment. His comment was that it was the most important building ever built with state of North Carolina funds.
The reason I'm staring at you is because I'm trying to figure out what context that's in. It's a basketball arena.
Exactly. And it's that's some Mary Lou Retton type mental gymnastics, bro. Shout out to anybody who knows who Mary Lou Retton is.
I was going to say, do you know who Mary Lou Retton is? Oh, my Atlanta. We are officially entering. Do you know who that is, Daniel?
That is some Simone Biles type mental gymnastics. How's that for the kids?
Nobody in this studio but Joey and I know who Mary Lou Retton is. If you're in the chat, please tell me y'all know who that is. I don't understand the context. I mean, Reynolds Coliseum's a cool place. I've always liked going over there to watch basketball back in the day. Haven't been since they redone it. I mean, they've fixed it up nice for the ladies over there, and I think they have some other events and play a basketball game over there. But the most important building, yeah. Of course, maybe in 1970.
Even then, you mean to tell me that's more important than like a hospital, the state legislature,
the Capitol building.
A Capitol building? I mean, you could argue, and again, this is where they're going, and this is where the self-aggrandizing gets me a little bit. But we're going to talk about the fact that doesn't exist if Old East and South Building and Chapel Hill don't exist. I mean, ignore what you want to. Tell that story however you want to. But it was, that was a thing. Anyway, Tommy,
do you know the new Easts and the new West are not dorms anymore?
What are they?
They're like admin buildings, and they have other
Makes
stuff.
sense.
I noticed that. Well, I guess last year. I thought you could still live there.
Makes sense. Well, you can live there, but I don't think it would be. I think it would be frowned upon.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, back to my point. You were saying that you think NC State needs to win this for their sanity. Please elaborate.
NC State relevancy is based on how they do against North Carolina to them.
I don't disagree with that.
And I think NC State's a good basketball team this year. I think they've got some good players. Kevin Keats, I can't understand how that man kept his job last year. And without the transfer portal, I don't think there's any chance he would be the coach there, but he has done it well. He seems to be a pretty good dude. And he was able to finagle to lose 20 games.
It was
something like that.
It was the most they'd seen in quite some time, Tommy.
And he has completely flipped it around. So props to him. I mean, the portal is crazy, and he's got a lot of those guys. But for NC State fans, look, NC State football hadn't been good, but they've beaten Carolina on pull rabbits out of areas, and they're relevant. You know, it means more to them to beat North Carolina than it means anything else. So I think if they lost Sunday, there would be a large portion of the fan base that no matter what happened, their season has been a dud. It's not much different than North Carolina's. When you talk about comparing, beating Duke or beating State in football or whatever, it's just part of it. But I think this game is gigantic for NC State. It's huge for North Carolina. It's bigger for NC State.
See, I'm at this place where I feel like, North Carolina's season hinges on these last 5 games. And I know that's a no crap, statement by yours truly, but there's just no room for error for this North Carolina team anymore. And unless they want to be respectively considered the most underachieving North Carolina squad in the program's history, I think they've got to win. They've got to win at NC State. It's a Q1 opportunity. Virginia, they'll have a chance to beat Virginia, which I think should still be a Q1. And then, Notre Dame, Florida State, and Duke. Like you can't lose any more games. Like we've talked about every week that, this is North Carolina needs to win this to improve their resume. Now they're at the point where they just can't lose. And that's just that it boggles my mind that this was the same team just 11 months ago that was a few points, and to hear them tell it, a 1 rebound away from a national championship. So at this point, I think they can't lose anymore. They need to win every single thing. If they lose one more, and again, they are squarely on the bubble right now.
They're 16-10, correct?
Yes. I'm not going to mention any quote bracketologist by name, but the one that most people cite has North Carolina squarely on the bubble as one of those last 8 teams that has to see some things happen or they're not in. They're not out, but they're also not in.
I tell you what, I'd rather Carolina play Kentucky and Dayton on Tuesday or Wednesday than be a 12 seed or something like that. I think that would be pretty epic.
I don't think, but I guess my point is they have given away the opportunity to have those wishes anymore because of how, the falling apart against Miami Monday night was a perfect example.
Let me chime in right here on the chat And props to folks in the YouTube chat. Brett Weeks asked, needs a guest that played summer ball with this team that could explain why they're struggling.
Oh, funny you should ask.
Funny you should ask. Later in the show, we got Sherelle McMillan, got Greg Barnes, two epic, legendary Inside Carolina people, but we also have Jawad Williams coming on the show later in hour two. Just might have played some summer ball with these guys.
Well, he's also, and we'll talk to him about it, but Jawad has transitioned into being a coach, and he's working on getting his NBA coaching certification. So he's kind of gone from this role of a dude that plays with these guys to also a guy who mentors them and gives them coaching advice and explains to them how he can or how to extend their careers and stuff like that. I mean, Jawad's always been a really wise dude, but I think we'll have a chance to break some of that down with him, and it'll be cool to hear from him.
Can I throw a spoiler up?
Feel free.
Nobody knows why this team's struggling.
Oh, no, nobody. And I'm a firm believer that nobody in that locker room, nobody on the coaching staff, nobody in the Smith, I don't think anybody knows what is making this team be the way they are, because if they did, it would have been fixed. Mm-hmm. I know that's low-hanging fruit, but Tommy, I want to ask you, what do you feel like realistic scenarios for these last 5 games are? I don't think they're going to lose them all, but by the same token, nothing I've seen, even considering that Clemson game last Saturday, nothing I've seen them do makes me feel like there's more than 2, maybe 3 wins left.
I mean, realistically, I think they could win them all.
And I'm not trying to be confrontational.
I think they could lose them all.
What makes you think they can win them all? I'm not trying to be confrontational. I'm legitimately curious. What have you seen that makes you think they can win them all?
Because I've seen them play well in stretches, and I've seen them play well enough to beat these teams. Now, I mean, Clemson, I'm not going to give Clemson credit. Clemson is not as good as their record and all that, but they're a decent basketball team, and Carolina whipped their butt. And where I was going is realistically they could win them all, and realistically they could lose them all. That's the problem.
I think that's more realistic than winning them all.
I don't disagree there. But the way I look at it is it doesn't matter whether you lose 1 or 2 or 5. You lose any, and I don't think they're going to. Folks want to leave Carolina out.
Right.
folks want to leave the Blue Bloods out.
Yes.
Right. Now that Dayton matchup that I mentioned, and you guys can chime in on that. I think that would be the NCAA and TV would love that. But the story is preseason number 1 didn't make the tournament.
Yep.
That's a big story.
It's a dubious honor, bro.
Yeah. And that carries weight. Sure, money matters and Carolina draws eyeballs and all that stuff, but it's a bigger story if Carolina doesn't get in. So that's why I think they need to win them all, because if they don't win all of them, they start giving people reasons to keep them out.
Yes, I love the way you said that. It gives people reasons to look negatively upon them. Tommy, I want to ask you this, and I know merit doesn't mean anything, but when I was talking with Sherelle about this on Monday night, this team hasn't earned the right to go to the tournament. This team doesn't deserve to go to the tournament based on the way they've played this year. And I'm not just looking at that based on, quad 1 wins and net ranking, all that stuff. I mean, they haven't done anything through the course of 4 months now to show that they belong in the NCAA tournament. Any of that is based on last season.
I mean, I don't know. What are they in quad 1 right now? Does Ohio State count?
I think Ohio State game is dropped. I think that's dropped to a quad 2 because they've lost. I think they've got 1 quad 1 win.
Who?
Well, no, because Clemson was a 2. I don't know.
If Ohio State doesn't count, and I don't keep up with all this metrics mess, but that would be like 0-10 in quad 1.
Well, and the funny thing is the NC State win, they won by enough points that made that a quad 2 win. It would have been a quad 1, but they won by it's absolutely insane. Well, and to contrast, I saw Kansas's resume. Kansas has won like 10 quad 1 games.
Yeah.
Same team lost arguably more than the Tar Heels lost last year when you consider production. And they have absolutely just handled their business. North Carolina has not proven that they belong in the tournament.
What's Carolina's best win? Neil, what's Carolina's best win on the season?
Clemson.
You think Clemson is? Clemson lost by 40 Clemson beat Florida State by 40. Does that make them a good team, or does that make Florida State terrible? I think NC State's their best win.
That was a good win, but I think Clemson was like a real show, like their offensive strength.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, having their best 3-point shooting game, just everyone kind of playing and seeing everyone playing together. Caleb, Armando, and RJ arguably played their best and most cohesive game.
So that's their kumbaya, everybody on the same page. Let's dance to Rihanna, go out and wear Clemson out, after we wear Clemson out moment. And then less than 48 hours later, they give it all back.
Bleep it all back. Yes. And that's the thing. Like that is a perfect encapsulation of what this squad is and has been this year. One good game, you play Kumbaya, and it was the best they had looked all year. I don't think that's their best win, but I think it's the best they've looked all year. And then God knows the way they came out in the second half against Miami. I think they looked okay in the first. I think they looked a little determined. I think they were playing with a little bit of an edge. They weren't getting put and actually dictated their will some on offense and how they were using Armando Bacot to seal off pass to the basket. And then the second half just came out listless, lifeless, with zero energy, no verve, and just seemed once again, and this is what maddens our Carolina fans and our IC subscribers, they seemed like they were just okay letting it happen. Just okay letting Miami take it to them, just okay letting Miami get all the 50-50 balls, just fine with shooting themselves out of the game. And that's the absolute maddening part that nobody can wrap their head around, nor can I think anybody on the staff can wrap their head around. It's just it's mind-numbing, Tommy.
They seem incapable. No, you said they didn't mind it happening, or whatever, however you phrase it. I think the trick is stopping it. I don't know if they just let it happen. They've yet to figure out how to stop it, and that's leadership on the floor, right? We talked about how great Armando Bacot's been in his career. But Armando Bacot and Leaky Black have lost more basketball games in their career than just about anybody in the history of Carolina basketball. They have been a big part of that leadership void that has not been able to, we're not going to do this anymore, folks, And that's what, when we talk to Jawad, we can talk about that is we're not going to keep allowing this to happen. We're better than that. And words are easy to say. It's easy to say, that's inexcusable. That's, we can't do this or whatever. Do something about it. And that's what I've not seen from this team. And that's probably the most disappointing thing watching them is they played 5 and 3/4 games in the tournament last year where they had that.
Yeah. They look undeterred, and this year's team looks turd.
And the same guys. I don't want to hear the Manic Nance deal. The 4 that were there last year are the same guys.
Yeah.
And they don't even look like the same people. Anyway, I know we need a break.
All right, take a break. We're going to come back, talk with Sherelle McMillan. We'll talk about, things that the coaching staff are saying. We're going to talk about, player development, what the roster needs, how the summer may look, what the end of the season might look like, all that good stuff. We got Greg Barnes, third segment, and hey, Jawad Williams, top of the second hour. I think that'll be a fun conversation. Stick around. We appreciate you being a part of Inside Carolina Live. He's Tommy Ashley. I'm Joey Powell. You're listening to 97.9 The Hill, WCHL.
I'm Shimon Williams, and you're listening to Inside Carolina Live.
The Innovators is a monthly interview series airing on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL, designed to shine a spotlight on innovators and entrepreneurs in our community. Presented by the Town of Chapel Hill Economic Development, The Innovators introduces you to the people and shares the stories behind startups and emerging businesses in our community. With a look to the future of industry in Chapel Hill, you can find all episodes of The Innovators at chapelboro.com/The Innovators.
Hendrick's Cigarette Subaru South Point is happy to announce that new Subarus have arrived. Are you ready for a test drive? Come see us and find 3.9% APR on select 2023 models now through the end of the month. And we're growing our used car inventory, so Hendricks Subaru South Point is offering top dollar for trade-ins. Skip the guesswork, and we'll give you your trade-in value in 10 seconds. Hendricks Subaru South Point, 984-287-5600.
Hey, Jack, if you were to describe us at Almost Jewelers, what would you say?
Great question, Eli. I'd say we bring the bling.
Well said, my friend. We have so many beautiful pieces, truly the largest engagement ring and wedding band selection in the area.
Bringing the bling means we specialize in diamonds, engagement rings, and wedding bands, and we are on site for custom consultations too.
Oma's Jewelers in Eastgate Crossing is the place for bridal jewelry in Chapel Hill. Oma's Jewelers. The name means diamonds. Let's engage. Online at omasjewelers.com.
I'm Jennifer Salemson, president of CIMG Residential Mortgage. At CIMG, we're strongly rooted in this community, and I am particularly proud of the role that women have played in CIMG's growth and success over the past 26 years. Our unique local culture differentiates us from our national competitors. At CIMG, we lend where we live. Visit us at CIMGINC.com.
Tired of working from home? Need space for your team to grow? Visit the Bold Building just 10 minutes from downtown Chapel Hill and UNC. If you need an office for one person, two people, or a team space for 50, we have professional office space for you. When we think about where and how we work, times they are a-changin'. I'm Shayla with Bold Commercial Real Estate, inviting you to ditch the old way, jump on the bold way, and see how we can make your workspace the best it can be. Visit boldcre.com.
Hey, it's Aaron Keck. Join me every weekday morning at 8:45 during This Morning with Aaron Keck for the Impossible Quiz. Listen for the cue to call to test your knowledge with a different question every day of the week. And we're giving out $10 gift cards to the Flying Biscuit Cafe in University Place for the first correct answer. Even more exciting, if nobody answers the question of the day, the prize rolls over and the pot builds until someone gets it right. So get your thinking cap on and join us each weekday for the Impossible Quiz at 8:45.
You're listening to Inside Carolina Live with Tommy Ashley and Joey Powell on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL, the flagship station for Tar Heel sports.
I gave up on running round.
They show us about Tommy Ashley in the Is that what this song is? This is Tommy and the Whiskey.
I listen to that on the way here.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That's my get ready. You know, I'm in the car and I sing and I get my voice right.
I think I just threw up my mouth a little bit.
Why are you laughing, Daniel? You're supposed to be on my side.
It's just a funny hype song to get going.
No, I just, lets you get the bass going in the voice.
Yeah.
And there's
Can you give us a rendition? I can bring it back.
I don't sing right
live. What are you doing tonight, ladies? Why don't you meet me over at the bus stop?
You can meet me at Hurricanes. I'm actually going to Carter Friendly.
Carter Friendly. I wish I could be there. All right, our next guest.
You could. I'll sell you a ticket.
Negative, Ghost Rider.
500.
Overrated. Overvalued. All right, let's get back to where we're supposed to be. And there's one person that can do that for us because I've known this guy long enough that he can snap me back to reality when he wants to, whether he appreciates that or not. Sherrod McMillan, Relly Mac, how you doing, bub?
I forgot about the music.
You forgot about it. We didn't forget about it.
I did.
We got to get you some more hype music too, Sherrell.
No, that's what he wants. He loves a good Wanye vocal run.
I know, but that just...
It ain't about Tommy.
Tommy, you said in the car that that's what you listen to kind of get yourself going. I think sometimes I might listen to like End of the Road and get my vocals going, get me, nice and ready for the day.
That's
a little End of the Road,
yep.
A little Yesterday, a little It's So Hard to Say Goodbye.
Or how about a remake of Can You Stand the Rain?
Oh, man, there you go.
See?
There you go.
Don't get me started about concerts.
All right, well, yeah, I'm sure you've seen them too.
TLC and Boys to Men at Walnut Creek back in the day.
Man.
I think MC Hammer was there
All right, Peter left Okay, we have totally lost the plot this morning. Sherelle, we're losing this show just so we can kind of be like North Carolina basketball right now, and they're losing.
Oh, no.
How's that for a segue? I want to ask you. Yesterday in Hubert Davis' media availability, he started saying some things about making tweaks to his lineup, and they know the team better than anybody does. But doesn't it seem like if there was going to be tweaks to the lineup or to the rotations, they probably should have been made before UNC got to this proverbial back against the wall situation they're in?
I mean, should they have? And did the UNC staff think that maybe they should have, are two different things. I think if there's anything we know about Hubert Davis is that, he learned a lot of his stuff from Coach Smith and from Coach Williams. And he's always talked about how he incorporates all the great coaches he's played with or played for or coached for. And I think one of the things that maybe carried over with Coach Williams is not disrupting, especially that starting lineup, because Hubert Davis has also shown a propensity to be very loyal to his guys through a lot. Some would argue through too much. So I don't think it's surprising that, we're at the 5-game marker left in the regular season, and now he's considering it because I think he wants to exhaust all possibility that it's going to work in his current situation before moving on to something else. Because, let's be frank, if it's the move we're thinking about, which is, potentially taking Pete Nance and giving him a different role, maybe off the bench, then that's kind of it, because he is a fifth-year senior. So you're kind of telling him that we're moving forward. So if that is the move that is made or the tweak that he's considering, and if you look between the lines, that's kind of how I read it. That I think it's not surprising that it came this late, because he wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to work before he really moved on to something else.
Yeah, you definitely can't say that they didn't give things, or at least the original stab with Pete Nance playing the 4-5. You can't say they didn't give that a chance, because is every time he's been healthy, he's been in the starting lineup that I can remember. One of the things I want to ask you, and again, I don't like to play coach, but I think, some folks have been trying to make some projections and some conjecture. What if you had the reins, what would be one thing you could tweak right now that you think would make a positive impact for this team? And if you'd like to go with the one you just mentioned, feel free.
I would just tell them to make shots. I mean, I don't mean to. I don't mean to go around your question, but I don't think this is a lineup thing. This is a you've got to be better thing. If you read Adrian Atkinson's stuff, the shooting slump story that he put out, I think yesterday or Thursday, the numbers are alarming, which is how bad they're shooting when they're open or lightly contested. So, Hubert Davis deserves blame. Let's go ahead and put that out there, because people think we're soft on him for whatever reason. But he deserves blame because he's the head coach, and ultimately it falls on his feet. However, players got to play too. And at some point, you got to be tough enough to step up and just make a shot. And I think because of what happened at Clemson and, the kind of good vibes that were around that, everybody thought it was going to turn around. And then they kind of went back to what they've been for most of the season, which is arguably, soon it will be inarguably, the worst three-point shooting team in Carolina history. So if I could tweak something, it'd be like, hey, can you just make, 35% of your open looks, not even your contested looks, just of your open looks, because they were 15 of 30, I think, against Clemson. They were 5 of 31 against Miami. So just bring that to 10 of 26, and North Carolina probably wins a few more games. But it goes back to with this core group, Joey, what we've been talking about now for 3 years. That variance. You shoot 50% against Clemson, at that time the second best defensive team in the conference. You shoot 50%, make 15 threes. Against Miami, who is a further down team on the defensive list as far as conference-only defensive efficiency, you shoot 5 for 31. Against Miami, a team who is not good at offensive rebounding all season, you give up a ton of offensive rebounds. It's just like they can never do more than one thing good in a game at the same time. And to me, that's what it all goes back to. So I don't know if I answered your question about a tweak, but if I could have one tweak, it'd be make shots.
Yeah, Sherelle, Tommy here, and we're listening and talking to Sherelle McMillan, certainly Inside Carolina's soothsayer. I'll do it that way because you always bring the rational discussion to this stuff. And you're right, they need to make shots. I think I posted on the boards, and maybe I did not hear it correctly, but I could have sworn they said Brandon Miller makes 80% of his open looks. I mean, that is next level.
Andrew Playtech's making 45 of his 3-pointers.
Yeah, I mean, so as far as players got to play, yes. If you can't shoot, unless you're Dennis Rodman type, you're not going to help anybody in a basketball team. But Sherelle, I guess the beef back to Hubert Davis's side is he's got data on the guys that are playing the most minutes. And he's got that data for 3 years now for some of them. And that is the beef I hear the most of. Love and Davis, they're struggling. They're not getting it done. Pete Nance, whatever. Why not give somebody else an opportunity to have a chance to do it in more than just spot minutes? That would be my biggest criticism if you were Davis.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's valid. I think we don't exactly, it's the cover for the coaches always is, well, you don't see what goes on in practice. And I think it's true, but it's also convenient for coaches. But we just don't know exactly how Hubert Davis wants to run things. We know what he said, and sometimes his actions don't align with, his words. So we're still trying to figure that out. And to your point about data, Tommy, he's kind of said multiple times in press conferences that he's not really a numbers guy. So I think what he's looking at is more confidence and feel and some of those things that maybe can't be understood via data or can't be read via data. So maybe that's what it is. He just feels like, he likes these guys so much and thinks so highly of their basketball ability that eventually it's going to come around. Eventually is running out of time. So we'll see. But I think it's a valid criticism, even if there may be. Well, let's put it this way. I think if we knew exactly what he wanted to do and why he wanted to do it, I think that would inform about whether or not we should be critical of it. But as it is now, there's really been no, outside of a couple of quotes, really no detail about exactly what he's trying to accomplish with rotations, with, offensive and defensive philosophy. There's been some, but nothing I would call concrete. And I think that goes back to what a lot of people got into a little bit of a tizzy over last year when Greg said that UNC basketball has a messaging problem. And I think that's still the case.
Hey, Cheryl, Nia Satterfield Brown here. I just wanted to ask.
Hello.
How are you? I just wanted to ask, what do you think needs to happen in these next 5 games that will kind of guarantee North Carolina's postseason fortunes? Do you think that we can afford to drop 1 or 2 games, or are all 5 of these last games must wins?
Yeah, I'm in the you got to go 5-0 camp, and I know what Lunardi said, and some of the other bracketologist folks have said, but you cannot. So you can't lose to Florida State. You can't lose Notre Dame. That's just non-starters. You lose those, you probably have to win the ACC tournament to get in. Of the other 3 remaining, State, Virginia, and Duke, if you had to pick 2 to win, you'd want the road ones because those give you the quad 1 wins. Which again, the fact that we have to discuss like discrete math and algebra to be able to understand who gets in the tournament is patently ridiculous. But another story for another day. But I think they need to go 5-0 personally. I think 5-0 will remove them from the bubble, even with a first round loss in the ACC tournament. Anything less than that, then they're going to have to make some noise in the tournament. And that's going to be difficult because, depending upon who they beat, if they go 4-1, they could, have to play the number 1 seed. They could be the 8th seed. So there's a lot of stuff at play. But I mean, they have to think of it as they got to be NC State on Saturday. And as cliche as it is, the 1 game at a time, this is the part of the season when it really matters. If you got 5 1-game seasons remaining in the regular season, is the way it needs to be looked at. So Saturday should be played like it's the national championship game, because you lose that game, and who knows if there's a tomorrow. The game against Notre Dame should be played like it's a national championship game. Same with Florida State and Virginia and Duke, because the margin for error left about a month ago.
So on that note, this is not the same NC State team that North Carolina faced back in January 21st when they first beat them. NC State has, I think, Jack Clark back from injury. He was out with a hip injury. So NC State now has Traquavion Smith, Jarkel Joyner, and Jack Clark. And in their loss, I think, to Syracuse on Tuesday night, he put up 15 points. So what do you think is going to realistically happen tomorrow afternoon?
I'm not encouraged if I were a Carolina fan. Just because it is that kind of back to the wall situation against a team who is also coming off a loss, a team who has similar records. So you're vying for kind of the same, I would say, spot when it comes to ACC tournament seeding. So you've got that going on. And then, again, you can never, ever discount the seething hatred that will be emanating from that building on Sunday. Because there's nothing on earth that NC State fans hate more than North Carolina basketball. And I say that with conviction, with 23 years of experience now of having gone to one of the schools and understanding how they feel about each other, and then from living in the state my entire life. So it's going to take North Carolina's best effort on Saturday. And I think, obviously the situation with Leaky Black that happened with Traquavion Smith, that's coming in the back of the minds. But for UNC, it's going to be as it always is. It's going to be, can they get the ball into Armando Bacot in scoring position? And if not, can they hit the open shots? I mean, I hate to make it that simple, but that's what it is. If they go 5 for 31, they're going to lose by 20 points. If they go 15 for 30, they're probably going to win. If they go in the middle, they'll have a chance to win. So it just has to be a team effort, and they have to be really, really mentally locked in to be able to go in there and get a win.
Sure, we appreciate you, man. Thanks for making time for us on a Saturday morning. Before we let you get out of here, I saw when you did your weekly scoop this week for Inside Carolina, you were kind of starting to throw some, I guess, a little bit of chum out there about what the offseason is going to look like. I think there's potentially 3 kids that could reclass. I know there's a lot of question marks around who's going to leave this roster or who's going to give up their remaining eligibility, including players who are going to exhaust their eligibility. Do you have any kind of sense as to when that timeline might start coming into a little clarity? Is it going to be, after the season when players have made their decisions? Do you think that some of these recruits could start leaning a little one way or another? Or do you think it just has to be postseason meetings and declarative statements first?
Yeah, I think whenever the season ends, probably within 48 hours, Hubert Davis will start to continue to talk to coaches and parents and agents and trainers and anybody who has any influence. And from there, decisions will be made pretty quickly, because with the portal now, the way it is, the sooner you get in there, the sooner you can start taking your official visits and the sooner you can secure a spot. Because we know it is a bit of a game of musical chairs with a lot of guys not having a seat in the end. So I think, for the players at UNC, and there will be some, that's just reality now. There's been some each of the last 3 years, and it will continue to be so. For the players who leave UNC, who enter the portal, they'll want to do that, I would say, within the first week and a half. Last year with Kerwin Walton, when he decided at the very last minute, that was a unique situation because he had kind of told everybody he was coming back, so that was different. But with this year, I would say within a week or two, UNC should know kind of who's gone and how they're going to start replacing them.
All right, brother. Well, I know you've got a lot going on. Hopefully you can dial in and be focused and have a chance to actually watch the ball game tomorrow. But for the record, I am just as pessimistic about the Tar Heels' chances tomorrow as you are. But either way,
I mean, they have a chance because they have shown that they can play. But it's like what has UNC done this season that really inspires confidence that they can go into a place like Raleigh and what I think will be the toughest road environment of the season and get a win? They could do it, but is it likely? I don't think so.
Yeah, you sound like me talking to Tommy earlier. All right, man. I appreciate you. Thanks for being a part of the show this morning. Give our love to the family. We'll talk to you soon.
Yep, later, y'all.
All right, that's Sherelle McMillan, Inside Carolina hoops analyst and all around great human being. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. We'll talk with Greg Barnes a little bit about kind of conference realignment in North Carolina's stance as an athletic department and where things sit right now. Kind of a larger picture discussion with Greg because he seems to really have his finger on the pulse there. But we'll be right back to Inside Carolina Live on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL.
This is George Lynch, and you're listening to Inside Carolina Live at 97.9 The Hill.
At Mack Orthodontics, Dr. Kervin Mack is the heart of the organization. Here he is with more.
I came to the realization that I was interested in orthodontics because I really liked working with young people. And you get to build a relationship with them. The first thing I say when people come in for any patient exam is, tell me about yourself. I want to know about you. I'm in the business of taking care of people. I just happen to work on teeth.
Mack Orthodontics in Hillsborough and Burlington. Start loving your smile. Learn more at mackortho.com.
If you're more than someone who just checks the scores, I want to introduce you to the place for Tar Heel sports discussion, analysis, and breaking news. Inside Carolina has been the center of the Tar Heel sporting universe for over 20 years, with a team of the best UNC sports reporters around, unrivaled insight, and a vast message board community for round-the-clock discussion with other Tar Heel fans. Your game day begins and ends with InsideCarolina.com.
I'm Hank Hill, and I sell propane and propane accessories. I think I've done pretty well.
Talking about that dang old 401k, man.
And that's Boomhauer. I used to get my financial advice from him.
Been talking about that dang old Bitcoin and penny stocks, man.
Dang it, Boomhauer, that was terrible advice. Thankfully, John Stillman at Rosewood Wealth Management helped me fix my mess. If he weren't my friend, I'd hug him.
Dang old Hank and I ain't real, man, but Carolina Wealth Stewart is doing business at dang old Rosewood Wealth Management as a real registered investment advisor in the state of North Carolina, man.
I'm Don Rice from your locally owned and operated Molly Maid. As we celebrate 25 years in our community, we would like to highlight the work of the Compass Center for Women and Families. They focus on helping people that are experiencing domestic abuse attain self-sufficiency, safety, and health. We at Molly Maid have been supporting their mission for more than 24 years and invite you to learn more or donate at compassctr.org. Thank you, WCHL, for caring about our community.
This is Jeff Rubish of High and Rubish Insurance Agency. Did you know being prepared with a list of qualified home repair professionals could save you time and money when you face it with an emergency situation? Know now who you would call if you needed a plumber, a roofer, an electrician, and of course, knowing how to get in touch with your insurance agent. Call my office at High and Rubish Insurance at 919-913-1144. We can help you with this list and access your insurance needs as well. This is Jeff Rubish. Did you know?
I'm Pat Circadakis with Coldwell Banker, Howard Perry in Wellston. Selling real estate is more about listening to people than it is selling. If you listen to what people want, what their needs are, the real estate takes care of itself. Probably about 50% of my business comes from past clients and customers or their referrals. Some of my best friends in the world are people that I sold houses to. So that's important to build those long-term relationships.
To learn more, go to trianglehomes.realestate.
You're listening to Inside Carolina Live with Tommy Ashley and Joey Powell on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL, the flagship station for Tar Heel sports.
Tommy, if I asked you for 3 steps, would you give me 3 steps? No, you just shoot me right in the ass right there.
I was trying to. I would let you. I'd let you get a start, and then shoot you in the back.
That's very telling of you, son. Very telling of you.
Do you know who that song was, Daniel? God, dog.
Said he would shoot me in the back. Wow.
If you did what? If you got me mad enough to pull a gun, I'm just.
He would shoot me in the back, folks.
If I shot in real life like I do on the video games, I'd probably hit everything but you.
Just mark that, please, Daniel. That's on February the 18th, in the year of our Lord 2023. Tommy admitted on live radio that he would shoot me in the back. Somebody that I hope would not shoot me in the back, and again, gentleman and scholar, Greg Barnes.
Ain't nothing but a G-Bang, baby.
Greg, would you give me 3 steps if I asked you?
Absolutely.
See, it ain't that hard, Tommy.
I'm not giving somebody a head start.
You're going to shoot him in the back anyway. Why does it matter?
I'll just go ahead and just pop you.
Wow. Greg,
man, we don't argue.
Greg,
That's Johnson County strong there.
Exactly. Like I tried to steal his tractor or something. What are we even doing here?
Wow.
Greg, I wanted to bring you on today. First off, I love what you've been doing with Tommy and kind of the next level stuff. I think it's a cool iteration of Greg Barnes on IC. So it's good to see. I appreciate it. You kind of got a really cool perspective on a kind of a wider lens about Carolina athletics, but also this conference realignment. And I hate to say realignment because it's what everybody mentions anytime they talk about any sort of conference discussions. But what I'd love to find out from you is, as things are starting to, I guess, continue to expedite with Texas and Oklahoma potentially moving out of the Big 12. Depending on who you read, there's rumors popping up about the ACC actually adding people. I want to ask you, if you wouldn't mind, just reset kind of where the ACC sits right now with its grant of rights deal, and what I guess the real question mark is about the viability of the conference for both the intermediate future and the long term.
Well, I think what people need to understand is that when all this started to happen, it really was when Maryland left almost a decade ago. And there was a big fight about Maryland leaving. There was a $50 million buyout, which seems cheap by today's standards. But after that happened, the ACC started to realize, hey, we're not the power conference that we thought we were, where everybody wanted to come and join us. And so it was at that point in time that the ACC put together this grant of rights. And effectively what that deal said was everybody is going to remain with the ACC through the ESPN deal, which is 2035-36. And if you decide to leave, not only would there be a buyout fee, but you would forego all of your media rights. So let's say Carolina decided to go to the Big Ten. Well, any money derived from TV coverage would go directly to the ACC, even though UNC would be with the Big Ten. So it was pretty much an ironclad deal that the ACC is going to be together for the next 20 years, through 2035-36. And it was really after that that a lot of the money really exploded. And that's kind of where things have gotten out of control. Is the SEC and the Big Ten have done a really good job of re-upping every couple of years. And so they have these massive deals in place. Current projections that we have in 2029, the SEC and the Big Ten will be paying out roughly $120 million per team per year. The ACC at that point in time will be paying out about half that at $60 million. And so the question for the ACC is, what can we do to really make sure that we're competitive on that level? Can we add people that would help? Can we get out of this deal if need be? And those are a lot of things that they've been bantering about and trying to figure out. And there's really just no good answers at this point in time.
What do you think the realistic next steps are? I know you say there's no clear answers, but when you mention that number between what the SEC is paying out per team, per school, and what the ACC is paying, I mean, that is a bridge too far, man. And so I would ask you, also considering what the Big 12, what the Big 10 is paying its members, what are the realistic options for the ACC to even pursue? Again, I don't expect you to have a holy grail here, but what are we even talking about at this point if you're Jim Phillips?
Well, as of the past year, granted it's going back further than that, but really in the past year, they've really kind of nailed down to figure out what would be beneficial. And, of course, the easy answer is, well, let's just add Notre Dame. They've already got the deal in place with Notre Dame where all of Notre Dame's non-football sports are ACC members. There's a clause in that contract that if Notre Dame decides to ever join a conference, it's got to be the ACC. And we know that they play 5 games against the ACC every year in football. You bring in Notre Dame, that changes everything because you can renegotiate your deal quite easily for a lot of money. Here's the problem. Notre Dame has no reason whatsoever to join a conference. And one of the reasons that the ACC kind of pushed back against college football playoff expansion is because if there's only 4 teams in the playoff and Notre Dame is not great, then what happened this year is going to happen more often. And that means Notre Dame doesn't have an easy path to the CFP. And they may need to go through a conference to where they can win the conference and get in that way. But once you expand to 12 teams, now all of a sudden Notre Dame could be like, maybe 10th in the country, which is not great, but that's good enough to get into the playoff without being a conference member. And Jack Swarbrick, Notre Dame's athletic director, has pretty much said as much. So with the playoff expanding, there's really no reason for Notre Dame to join. And so while a lot of people in the ACC are holding on the opportunity maybe to add Notre Dame, I think the smart people in the room understand that's not going to happen. And here's the other thing where that comes into play. People say, well, just add a couple other teams. You've got to make a move that makes sense financially. The example that Tommy and I have discussed is, let's say West Virginia, right? It's in the ACC footprint. It's got a rivalry with Pittsburgh. It's close to most of the schools in the Mid-Atlantic. But let's say by adding West Virginia, you bring in an extra $30 million a year. Well, that sounds pretty good, right? But when you're dividing that up throughout 15 teams, now you're talking about, okay, well, by adding West Virginia, we brought in an extra $2 million a year. And when we're talking about a $60 million potential gap, that's peanuts. And that's really the issue.
Talking to Greg Barnes, Inside Carolina's expert on everything. Greg referenced what he and I did a while back on Next Level. Check out that YouTube show if you haven't. On the numbers, we break it down a little bit more, and then there's a bunch of other Next Levels that folks need to check out as well. But Greg, you mentioned that West Virginia ad. There've been some rumor floating that Pac-12 teams or what all could come in. I guess my question is, at what point does somebody challenge this grant of rights? A, is it a group of teams that do it? B, and then C, say 4 teams decide to leave and tell the ACC, see you later. Where does all the money that the ACC takes in go? I've often wondered, if Carolina leaves, goes to the Big Ten, they get paid $100 million a year for the media rights, but they have to give it to the ACC. Where does that money go? Can you explain?
Well, you would think a lot of that money would go back to the schools, and so it would actually kind of be beneficial for the league if some of these schools decided to bolt, knowing they'd have to pay out these massive fees because they could fill the pockets of the other schools in the conference, and that's really part of the challenge. And you talk about teams leaving and possibly breaking up the grant of rights. Well, here's the issue with the ACC. If we look at the Big Ten, for example, even the SEC, those are massive schools. I mean, those are 50, 60,000 kid enrollments with massive donor bases. The ACC does not have that. The ACC has some very small schools, Boston College, Wake Forest, Duke, Miami small. And why would those teams vote to disrupt what's going on in their grant of rights? Because we know that teams like Carolina and Clemson and Florida State, maybe Virginia Tech, could really benefit by going to the SEC or to the Big Ten. But Wake Forest, maybe even a Duke, Miami, they're not necessarily going to get that invite because they don't bring in a ton of money anyway. And so they're going to push back about splitting up the grant of rights because it's beneficial to them. It would be hurtful if they actually broke it up. And so that's a lot of the challenge. I think really about the only thing that they're going to be able to do, unless somebody just like a Clemson or Florida State, they want the SEC money, they take it to court. Beyond that, I think what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to do some kind of tiered financing where Clemson and Florida State and Carolina bring in a ton of money because of the top football programs in the conference. They get a higher rate of that revenue coming in. And if a program like Wake Forest is not bringing in a whole lot, even though maybe they have a good team, they get significantly less. And I think that's where we're going. I think that's going to be the compromise eventually. But even that, there's a lot of hurdles and obstacles they got to get by to get everybody on the same page.
Yeah, I don't see that happening either. The problem is that if every school gets an equal vote, then those lesser schools are going to stay bound together to fight off any challenges to those type things. So somebody in the chat asks, East Tennessee Tar Heel asks, based on the West Virginia numbers, Greg, how many schools would the ACC need to add to make it financially relevant for the current schools, if it were even possible to do that, which I'm not 100% sure it is, other than Notre Dame?
And it's a great question. And you mentioned Pac-12. Here's where things get dicey. Is North Carolina, has 28 sports. So let me say this first, and I'll get into that. People say, well, you go to the Big Ten or the SEC. Well, the SEC only supports 21 sports. So if Carolina were to go to the SEC, they would have to cut 7 sports. I mean, day one, that would have to happen. They'd have to go to club teams. So that would be an issue. The Big Ten could handle that. When we start talking about the Pac-12, now you're talking about travel costs, right? And when we're talking about the Olympic sports, it's one thing if the football team travels to Berkeley, you have to play Cal. But when you're talking about the field hockey team or the men's lacrosse team having to make that journey, throughout the course of a year, instead of busing to Georgia Tech or to Blacksburg, I mean those costs get exponential. And so, how much are you actually gaining when your expenses are rising dramatically? And that's one of the issues, because the numbers that we broke down, Tommy, from the 2021-22 athletic year, Carolina had record revenue, right? Which is a good thing. But they also had record expenses. And that makes it challenging. So whenever they're trying to come up with ideas, West Virginia is an easy one because you can just bus to West Virginia. But when you start talking about adding Pac-12 teams or even Big 12 teams, there's a lot more that goes into it and makes it much more challenging.
Well, Greg, we appreciate it, man. I know you've kind of really got a good handle on these things, and I always get smarter whenever I hear you talk about it because, again, you've dug into it and you've done all the reading and the research and asking the good questions. So hopefully there will be some movement here, because I know a lot of folks who have been longtime UNC and ACC fans know that the current situation has a shelf life. So we'll certainly keep paying attention, and as things move, we'll certainly bring you back in to help educate us. But I hope you have a good Saturday. Enjoy yourself. And I promise next time we will talk about Lee Westwood when you get on here.
I was waiting for that question. So yes, I've got plenty to say about Lee, and we can devote a show to that if you'd like.
All righty. He's Greg Barnes, North Carolina, Inside Carolina writer, genius, sports coverer. The guy just knows a lot, and we appreciate him being a part of the show. We'll be right back on Inside Carolina Live on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL.
Hey, it's Trey Boston, and you're listening to Inside Carolina Live.
The Casual Pint is your place for craft beer. Choose among 35 rotating taps. With a wide variety of styles, there's something for everyone. What's your favorite style? Don't quite know? Sample before you select your pint or try a flight today. Wanting to take beer to go? Choose from 200 plus beers in their cooler to create your mix of six, or fill a crowler or growler from the tap wall. All at the Casual Pint, 201 South Elliott Road, Chapel Hill.
Free pickup and delivery service for car wash and detail at all 10 of our Triangle locations. Schedule your appointment at chapelhilltire.com. Drive happy and clean, Chapel Hill.
30 years ago, my father and brother founded VRC Limited. The Triangle real estate market has changed a lot since then, but the dedicated team of property professionals at VRC Limited still provide highly personalized services for our clients. Hi, I'm Meredith Bowler. Whether you're a first-time buyer or a savvy investor, the experienced and knowledgeable agents at VRC Limited are ready to help you buy and sell your property.
VRC Limited, the best place to find your home. Online at vrclimited.com.
Emerge Pediatric Therapy wants to take a minute for moms and dads. At Emerge Pediatric Therapy, their mission is to enhance the lives of the children they serve and the families who love them by providing a fun, nurturing, and supportive therapeutic environment. They are committed to making mealtime less stressful. Here's Executive Director Brittany Winslow with more.
Having a picky eater at your table can make mealtime a daily battle, especially when your child seems to be accepting fewer and fewer foods. At Emerge Pediatric Therapy, we use a sensory-based feeding approach to expand the number of foods your child will eat. The best part of our approach is that it's play-based, reduces anxiety and judgment around food, and can be easily carried over at home.
Take a Minute for Moms and Dads has been made possible by Emerge Pediatric Therapy, creating confident kids through customized therapy with offices in Carborough, Durham, and Cary. Online at emergepediatrictherapy.com.
Hi, I'm Trevor Holman of Trevor Holman Photography, and I know how putting your best foot forward can help you get ahead. That's why I've dedicated my talents as a visual storyteller to providing quality professional headshots for individuals, businesses, and industry leaders in the Triangle. Learn how your look can put your best foot forward with my column, Best Foot Forward, at the end of each month on chapelboro.com or visit trevorholmanphoto.com to book your session with me today.
Hi, it's Jones Angel, voice of the Tar Heels, and you're listening to your flagship station for Tar Heel sports, 97.9 The Hill, WCHL, Chapel Hill.
Coming to you straight from the heart of Chapel Hill in the 97.9 The Hill WCHL studios from the independent voice of UNC Sports, covering everything from Amos to Zwicker. This is Inside Carolina Live. And now the hosts of Inside Carolina Live, Tommy Ashley and Joey Powell.
Inside Carolina Live, coming at you. Appreciate you being a part of the show today. Hour number 2. And Tommy, this is the first time that we have talked to our good friend Jawad Williams since he switched over to the other side now, and he's officially Coach Wad. Jawad Williams joins us from Japan, and we appreciate him making time for us here on a Saturday morning. Jawad, first things first, how's coaching life?
I'm loving it, man. Coaching, I'm loving it. There hasn't been a day that I woke up and said I didn't really want to do this. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it a lot.
I think we knew that was kind of the next evolution of your career after you retired after, 17 years playing. I mean, and only one of those was when you had to deal with an injury. It blows my mind how long you were able to play at such a high level. And now, the next logical segue is that you're coaching, and just it's awesome to see, but appreciate you making time for us on a Saturday morning. And it was important for us to talk to you today about this Carolina basketball team because, your intro to UNC was on one of the most, one of the notorious for the wrong reasons rosters, and the fact that you guys went 8-20. And right now we're seeing a Tar Heel squad that is just mired in its own and can't get out of its own way. The first thing I want to ask you is, did you see this coming from this squad?
Honestly, I did not. I think the expectations were very high, especially after last season. Never expected them to be in this situation. But it is what it is at this point. You got to see how it plays out.
So when you're facing the longest odds and the most adversity that you can imagine, again, I don't think this team saw it coming either. What do you do on a daily basis to get yourself up to come to practice and try to get better? How do you approach that?
First of all, you continue to work hard. You continue to work at the things and control what you can control. So that, if that was the situation and guys were having a hard time getting up, imagine being on the 8-20 team. So I wouldn't understand that personally. You're still in a pretty good. You're not in a terrible situation. Not in the situation you wanted to be, but you're still in a pretty good situation where you can kind of control your destiny for the rest of the season.
When you look at this roster, and we talked about it a lot on these podcasts and on this Inside Carolina Live show, I mean, these guys should be better than they are, and they've played together forever. From a guy that's been on the court, that's been in the arena, what have you seen that keeps it from not working? I mean, obviously, everybody points to Brady Manick, and I agree. He was very good for this team, but it's not just Brady Manick's absence. Jawad, what are you seeing from afar that just shows you this isn't it? This is not getting it. Is it even explainable?
It's kind of hard to explain. Like you said, it's not just Brady Manick. There looks like there's a disconnect between each other. At the end of the day, when you're on the team, you got to learn how to play for each other. And if you can't play for each other, you're going to be a long season. And I feel like that's where they are right now. It's like they're still trying to figure things out. And like I said, it shouldn't be at that point, being that they've been together for so long.
When you look at Hubert Davis and how he's tried to manage this, obviously still new. I mean, he's a year and a half, year and 2/3 of a year in. It looks like he's still trying to figure out his way as well. He certainly has ideas, and he's very strongly motivated by the way he thinks things should be. Okay, you're Coach Wad now, and you see some of these things. Is there anything you see that maybe Coach Davis could have done differently leading up to this point? Obviously, people talk about play the bench. The bench is the greatest motivator and all. In your mind, watching it, what have you seen in that regard?
Oh, man, that's tough. With this team, I think there's a lack of accountability. Everybody wants the bench to be played. I understand that. But we don't know what they're doing behind closed doors. We don't know how bad they actually look in practice, if that's the case. But the one thing you're going to have to do, and we talked about this last year, is play the bench because you have to see what they're capable of, in extended minutes. If you go out there, you give a guy 3 minutes and he has 2 mistakes in 3 minutes, I understand from a coach's aspect, can you trust them to put them in for 10 minutes? But at some point, you have to let them see what they can do, let them explore. But at this point in time, I think it's a little too late for that. That should have happened early in the season.
Talking with Jawad Williams, now coach, but also a member of the 2005 national championship team. And Jawad dealt with some adversity when he was at UNC, and he's sharing his kind of unique insight with us today. Jawad, what are some potential things that guys can do? You talked about getting back to work. What are some potential things that guys can individually do when you're stuck in a situation like this where the proverbial back is against the wall, right? They have to kind of, depending on who you talk to, win out to have a chance at making the tournament now. What are individual things that guys can do, whether it's off the court or in the gym, to just hold themselves accountable and keep grinding? Is there anything that you can do differently this late in the season?
First of all, you got to look yourself in the mirror and be honest about what you see. If you can't look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, I need to do this better, then it's going to be a long year. That's where it starts. And then after that, you just got to get back in the gym, get back to doing what made you fall in love with the game. Once you fall in love with the game again, then things become a lot easier.
I want you to take us back to your situations. Where were some things where you felt like, man, this is kind of hopeless? Share with us where you felt like, we're not living up to those things. And what were the conversations that you were having in your head? And what were the conversations you were having with your teammates that kind of helped you guys just continue to grind and continue to come back and continue to work on the things that you knew you could eventually get to click?
Well, I remember facing that mindset of I'm going to transfer. That was the first thing. Then I looked myself in the mirror and tested my own character. Like, what would I do? Would I run? Which has never been in my character. So I X'd that out. So now it's, what do I do after that? Now that I know I'm going to stay here, what am I going to do? So my next step was getting the gym. And thank God I had 2 strong-minded guys right next to me, and Jackie and Melvin, who were able to get in the gym with me. And we shared that same mindset. Like, all right, we almost sank this ship. Now let's stay here long enough so we can right this wrong. And it worked out for us.
How much does coaching matter in these situations? And I don't mean X's and O's. I mean, how much does coaching, because you've heard Hubert Davis talk about how he has the guys come by and visit him just to talk. And he places a lot of value on building relationships with these guys, as most coaches do, but he does it in his own way. How much does coaching and kind of a connection with these players matter with what's happening on the court, and what can be done differently maybe to fix that?
It's like you said, it's bigger than X's and O's. You got to find a way to push guys' buttons in the right way. Like for myself, I lead with love, but I'm brutally honest with my guys, the guys that I coach now. I'm brutally honest. I don't hold anything back, and I tell them, it's a two-way street. You could be brutally honest with me. If you don't feel like I'm making you better, tell me what helps you. Let's have these open conversations, and we can both help each other grow. And I think that's something that could be missing right now. Sometimes you just got to let guys know what it is. And whether they like it or not, it's better to be respected than liked that sometimes. All the time, in my book. Always better to be respected than liked.
That's a great way to sort of get into it a little bit with Hubert. I think when he came in, and I'm not saying this is accurate, but a lot of people said he might be too nice. And obviously last year he wanted to win and win immediately. And he wanted to make sure his guys, I mean, if you're a guard on this team, there's never been another Carolina guard in the history of Carolina basketball that's got the freedom that RJ and Caleb have on this team. So put yourself in those coaching shoes, being brutally honest with what you've seen with a guy like, Pete Nance, who's played a ton of basketball, just a ton. Armando Bacot's the face of the program virtually. Has he improved? What has he done to improve himself? A lot of people say he deserves to be in the rafters, but he's been a part of these teams that have struggled. Just sort of take us there in your mind, your coaching mind now, and with your experience when you were at Carolina, because I have no doubt that you got a lot of tough love when you were at UNC from a variety of ways. What do you see here? Maybe that could, I'm not trying to second guess Hubert Davis at all, because he's got to do it like he wants to do it. But how do you gain that respect from a bunch like we've seen the last 3 years on this roster?
Starting from the guard aspect, you have to sit them down and show them numbers. The numbers don't lie. Show them what they're doing from a percentage standpoint. Point out exactly what they need to be doing. Sometimes, I said this before, Caleb gets a lot of love and he also gets a lot of hate because of some of the shots he takes. But at the same time, we have to live with that because he's carried us at times. And, at Carolina, it's always been the next man up. So if you bench Caleb, who's the next man up? I don't think we have that. And I think, maybe they're missing some depth in the roster or whatever, but, that's one thing. Just for Caleb, for example. With Pete Nance, I think we put unfair expectations on him. Being that he was coming in after Brady was leaving, we had this whole, it's another transfer savior out there, and it just didn't happen. Pete Nance is not who we thought he was, meaning we thought we were getting this stretch four. Carolina fans thought we were getting this stretch four, and I think we talked about this before. Pete Nance is not a stretch four. He's a 5-man. He's a stretch 5. He's a 5 he can shoot. And in my mind, he would be a guy that you would come in off the bench for Armando, but he's capable of stretching the floor. Just based on his numbers, he's shooting about 3-pointers per game. Those are not stretch 4 numbers by any means. Stretch 4 numbers are 5 to 7 threes per game. There's a small sample size. People say, well, he shot 45% from 3 last year on 3 attempts per game. That doesn't add up to me. Being that stretch 4 that I was my entire career, I was shooting 5 to 7 threes per game. On a hot night, it might get up to 11 or 12. That's just not who he is. It's not his character, and we put unfair expectations on him. With that being said, we also have some young guys who need to develop very fast. I think Jalen Washington is very talented. I think he's more in that stretch 4 mode than anybody else on the roster. And if he develops and they use him a little bit more throughout for the remainder of the season, it could be special for these guys. They could go on another run.
How difficult is it for a coach to be brutally honest with his guys, especially a new coach? You're a new coach. How hard is that? Roy Williams could do it. The guys that have been around forever that have some weight behind them can do it. How difficult do you think that is for Coach Davis?
I don't think it's difficult at all. Just basing off my experience so far, I told my guys from day one, I'm going to be brutally honest with you, and I'm never going to ask you to do anything that I didn't have to do throughout my career. And, Coach HD has that. He has the resume to back what he says. So if he tells you to do something or asks you to do something, I'm pretty sure he had to do it at some point in his career. So it's not hard at all.
What you got, Joey?
Jawad, you were kind of heading there a second ago. We were talking about expectations around Pete Nance. I want to talk about expectations for this squad in general. Is there any chance that these guys may have just read their own clippings, or is it just part of their DNA? I mean, did these guys, we've seen them say after last year that, we were one rebound away. All of the guys, when they made their announcements to come back, said, we're coming back to finish the job. I'm not going to get into whether or not these guys are actually doing anything on their own differently to get over that hump. But is there a chance these guys actually probably were feeling themselves a little much when they came back? Do you think there's any, to use your old Roy Williams quote, do you think these guys got fat and happy?
Yeah, I believe so. Everybody coming, like you said, coming back to finish the job. You forget, you almost didn't make the tournament last year. You forget you made it to the championship game, off of just getting hot at the right time. And then people just, this whole redemption thing. People, you forget how long of a road it is to get back to the championship game, to get back to the NCAA tournament, period. There's a lot that goes on beginning from preseason to NCAA tournament time. There's a lot of work to be done, a lot of ups and downs between then. And I think the guys forgot about that part. I thought they figured they would just walk on the court and end up back in the championship game again. And you see where it's gotten them so far.
All right, you've done a great job. We're talking with Jawad Williams all the way from the land of the rising sun right now. Jawad, you've given us your coach perspective, all right? I want to go back to Jawad, the fan now. What do you want to see from these guys over the next 5 games? And you can break that down into a game-by-game perspective. You can say, what you want to see them as a 5-game arc, but what are you looking for as a fan outside of just having them go out and win some freaking ball games? What do you want to see right now?
A sense of togetherness. I want to see the guys go out fighting. If you're going to go down fighting. You have nothing else to lose at this point. Worst case scenario, you lose a couple games at the end and you're really on the bubble and you leave it up into, NCAA's hand to make a decision. But, just play together, play hard, play smart, play together, the Carolina way. And if they do that for these next few games, they have a chance. Guys really have to step up. But we'll see what happens.
I lied to you. I'm going to ask you one more before we let you go. NC State coming up tomorrow. Any old great NC State memories? And I know Tommy wants to talk to you probably about the environment over there, but do you have any potential NC State memories you want to revisit?
I just remember our battles. Some of those guys, Julius Hodge, for example, Ilian at the mall, we were all great friends. They used to come over and hang out with us in Chapel Hill. But we had real battles, and those battles lasted for a long time until the day we retired. Me and Ilian and I played against each other quite often in France, and Julius actually became my teammate when we were in France. Just the battles I had, individual battles I had with those guys. It was always fun, and it was real bragging rights going on during those games.
What was it like playing over there? People say that PNC is not really tough to play. That Reynolds back in the day was ridiculously tough. What was it like playing at NC State?
It was always a rude environment more than anything. I remember them throwing things at our bench and stuff like that. It was a rude environment. But at the end of the day, when you playing against NC State, not really worried about the team so much. Just being honest. I mean, we weren't really worried about them. It was more so, let's go ahead and handle business and get back to Chapel Hill.
That dovetails nicely with, I think, what a lot of folks listening to this show think about the rivalry as well. So it's a lot of people listening to this will probably feel really vindicated to hear you say that. Jawad, we appreciate it, man. It's always good to talk to you. I appreciate you making time for us. And we'll get up sometime soon. Hopefully the rest of the season goes well for you over there, and we hope to connect with you whenever you get a chance after that.
Yes, sir. See you soon.
All right, brother. That's Jawad Williams. Coach Wad joining us here on Inside Carolina Live. We appreciate him making time for us on a Saturday morning. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more, specifically the IC Takeover segment. We'll get your questions in here. You're listening to Inside Carolina Live on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL.
I'm Ryan Switzer, and you're listening to Inside Carolina Live.
What's up, Tar Heels? It's Armando. Last season, I created the Mondo Burger with my friends at Town Hall Grill and Town Hall Burger and Beer. It's definitely the best burger in town. This season, I'm back and the Mondo Burger is back. Come out to Town Hall Grill and Town Hall Burger and Beer and watch the games. Order up the Mondo Burger. You might even see me there. Let's go Heels.
Get back to the big screen at the newly renovated Lumina Theater, bringing back the magic of the movies to Chapel Hill. The curtains are up, and we haven't just updated the seats and screens, we've seriously upped our concession game with soft serve ice cream, drool-worthy nachos, hot dogs with vegan options, and a variety of beverages, including excellent canned beer, wine, and cider. And of course, the latest and greatest blockbuster movies at the best prices in town. Find our current movie listings and showtimes at thelumina.com.
At Tech Contento, we believe food is a celebration of life. That is why our name means Happy Taco, and how we know you will always live happy with our mixed fresh food. From tacos made with homemade tortillas to various rice bowls to our amazing chorizo dip, you are sure to smile when you taste what we have to offer. Come visit us on 15501 next to North Chatham Village on the corner of Eagles Gas Station, or learn more at ta-contento.com.
All About Insurance is proud to announce an exciting partnership with Cincinnati Insurance, the high-value and high-net-worth insurance company. We specialize in luxury homes and collections such as exotic cars, jewelry, fine wine, and more. Cincinnati is an A+ rated carrier with one of the best and most comprehensive homeowners insurance packages for high-net-worth individuals. Isn't it time you had the insurance that fits your exquisite lifestyle? Call All About Insurance for a consultation at 919-933-4000 or visit allaboutinsurance.com.
Hendrick Subaru South Point is happy to announce that new Subarus have arrived. Are you ready for a test drive? Come see us and find 3.9% APR on select 2023 models now through the end of the month. And we're growing our used car inventory, so Hendrick Subaru South Point is offering top dollar for trade-ins. Skip the guesswork, and we'll give you your trade-in value in 10 seconds. Hendrick Subaru South Point, 984-287-5600.
Start the presses. For more than 100 years, UNC students and the Orange County community have relied on the DTH. Big basketball wins, protests, campus tragedies. Through it all, the DTH has been there. Your tax-deductible donation will support student stipends, equipment and training, and general operations to keep the DTH fulfilling its mission to build the future of news. StartThePresses.org.
You're listening to Inside Carolina Live with Tommy Ashley and Joey Powell on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL, the flagship station for Tar Heel sports.
See, that's where I get fired up. That's probably my go-to. It ain't a song about me and booze, but I get it. Shout out to Jawad Williams for making time for us from Japan. Jawad had a 17-year playing career, and I don't care where you're playing, to do anything for 17 years that requires physical exertion and your body to be in that kind of shape is amazingly impressive.
And also, like I said to him before we were off air, he looks the exact same.
Oh, yeah. He looks exactly the same. And the thing, too, about Jawad, and people may not appreciate, he was the first proverbial stretch four to play at Carolina. If you think about the way Roy Williams deployed him, I think a guy like Jawad on this team right now would be an absolute just killer for the squad. Pardon the violent term there,
and he played on 8 and 20.
Yep,
and left a national champion.
That's one of the things about, you talk about legacies, and the team that we're watching right now is kind of doing that backwards. They did win the national championship, and then they're also going from the top of the mountain to territory, and I don't think anybody really expected that. All right, y'all know what time it is. It's the Johnny T-shirt IC Takeover segment. We love Johnny T-shirt. Johnny T-shirt absolutely should be selling some some UNC gear today because baseball team's in town. Tom, you talked about, I think, lacrosse is playing in town today. The weather's beautiful outside. It's a little chillier than it has been all week, but Johnny T-Shirt should absolutely have some business today. So if you're listening to this and you're going to be in town today, swing by and see them there on East Franklin Street in Chapel Hill. You know the deal. If you're a premium subscriber, you get the extra 10% off the top, but they've already got the best selection of stuff, the best prices you can think of. And it's just, they're going to be the most accommodating, friendly salespeople you can find. So hit them up, check them out. Johnny T-Shirt, we appreciate what they do to sponsor Inside Carolina. And with that said, and so when we turn it over to you, the listener, the subscriber, hit us with some questions, Miss Nia Satterfield Brown.
Yeah, so first one, Hubert Davis spoke in his media availability about offensive tweaks. So one question from Rick Drumright is, what changes might we see in lineup tomorrow? Will Pete Nance start? Will we see maybe Jalen Washington? What kind of offensive tweaks will we see in the lineup, or even just earlier in the game, people coming in earlier than they have earlier in the season?
You know, I don't think he's going to change the lineups. I just don't. I think it's where he is at this point. I think what you could potentially see is something he kind of hinted at. We talked with Sherrell McMillan about it earlier in the show. You could potentially see Puff Johnson getting more minutes at the 4 spot. I think, and Jawad said it really well too, Tommy, that Pete Nance might make more sense as just a backup 5 now, especially if he's not going to shoot. Like if he's not actually going to play that stretch 4 role, just give Armando some breathing minutes now and see what happens there. I think the only real change you potentially will see is seeing Puff Johnson get more minutes at that 4 spot. What I would like to see, Mr. Ashley, and I said this when we were in a break a while ago, I think Jalen Washington needs 20 minutes a game right now. If his body can tolerate it, again, he's coming off major knee injuries times 2. If his body can tolerate it, I think you absolutely give him as much run as he can take right now and see where it gives you. Because the minutes he's giving, he's still a little bit of a Clydesdale and roller skate type, but the pedigree is there, man. The touch is there. The body type is there. But I'd love to see much more of Jalen Washington at this point. What say you, sir?
I just think we need to see something different because the same old 16 and 10, if for anything, maybe salvage this season, but also, they play next year too. And obviously practice is important, but there is nothing like live game action. I think somebody said that in the Final Four last year. It's live action out there. Well, these guys need some live action to get ready for that because, other than playing in the offseason against the former guys, which most players do, Most. I've heard that not everybody does, which is a little interesting and maybe explain some things. But the fact that this team is 16 and 10, what do they have to lose? Like Jawad said, like Sherrell said, like we've all said, get Jalen Washington. You need to see what he can do.
Yeah.
Right. I want to go into next season, if I'm the coaching staff, knowing that this guy can do this. This guy can handle this. We saw it last year, and we saw it in real games. I agree with you. I'd be surprised if the starting lineup changes. Now, maybe it does, and maybe it's not surprising for some, but we've seen guys that have not come out of the starting lineup and have played, quite frankly, terrible.
Terrible.
With no repercussions as far as playing time, as far as anything like that. So I don't think that performance. If we see something different based on performance at this point in the season, I'll be surprised. Pleasantly surprised, but surprised nonetheless.
The other thing you've got to think about, and this isn't a knock on Hubert Davis, this is a statement about every coach who has ever picked up a whistle. Coaches have egos. And there's a certain amount of it that at this point, since the vocal outcry from the fan base has been what it is, it'd almost be admitting defeat for the coaching staff to change the starting lineup this late in the year. I don't know that that's at play here. But I can certainly say that there would be some coaches around the country that would have a problem with that. That would not want to make a tweak this late in the year because they feel like that was them caving to the fan base or admitting, that they should have done something sooner. Yada yada. Next question.
Hold on a second. Let me comment on that. I heard a head coach somewhere say, I'm not going to do something just because the fan base is mad about it.
Perfect example.
That's why I don't think anything changes.
Right. There's coaches have egos, and the last thing they want to do is have Tommy Ashley or Joey Powell be right in saying that that maybe some changes should have happened. So
I don't know if it's being right. I just know that what we've seen is not getting it done.
Right. It ain't working. What's been done is not providing the results that anybody inside the Smith Center seeks.
No.
Go ahead, Nia.
Next question coming from Tony. How has the allure of NIL impacted this team this year?
I think Jawad mentioned, I don't know if it's NIL as much as it's a function of just assuming you're going to be good because you play good one time.
Yeah.
Or play good for a stretch of, and I've said it a lot, and maybe this is harsh, and somebody can call me out if they need to, but how many of these players have gotten better since last year? And I challenge people to show me that these guys have gotten better, and that work is done in the off season.
Yeah.
And so it is natural to know that if I'm going to get paid and it's not based on my performance, then I might not work as hard. But they've worked hard, and it just hadn't translated. So I don't know if you can sort of put it off on NIL.
Yeah.
And I'm never going to blame people for making money.
Yeah.
If somebody wanted to back a truck up here outside CHL Studios and drop off a bunch of money, I'm going to be the same way on this show. But they said, I'm going to give you this. If you go harder, we're going to have a fired up show every day. So
here's
I
where
think it's an easy out.
That's where I land. I think people who are blaming NIL are doing so because it's the new variable in the equation. But newsflash, some of these guys were making NIL money last year. I think the difference, if you want to blame NIL, I think blaming the money is a little bit of code speak. But I think if you want to blame NIL, where it could be a potential problem would be if it's been distractions. If doing the things to meet your NIL obligations have been distracting, then potentially I could see where that might be a detractor. But I think blaming NIL right now is just kind of grasping at straws and looking for what might be the boogeyman, when in reality it might just be these guys haven't meshed. I think looking at NIL right now is just pointing to the newest guy in the room saying he's the one that farted, right?
Well, I think that NIL is the reason that this team's the same team as last year.
Very possible. I think that's okay, but
from purely personnel.
But to blame the results on NIL, I think is a little bit haphazard.
Because other teams get it too,
right?
Kansas lost 2 first-round draft picks,
right?
And so 12 quad one wins, they're still kicking butt.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of blame, quote unquote, blame to go around.
Right.
And I think some of it's justified, some of it's not. But the bottom line is this same group of players has had the same issues for 3 years or 4 years or 5 years.
That's the quiet part that people are now saying out loud. Yes.
Yep.
Next question coming in from the Orange Shovel, taking into kind of consideration that we might have Caleb come back, RJ, potentially Armando. What can recruits and commits should we expect to lose in that process if those guys come back?
A couple things. I don't think that's going to happen. I just can't imagine the situation where all 3 of those guys came back. In fact, I would probably be one to encourage them not to, at least in some regard. But recruits, like Sherelle says, recruits don't look at the same things that maybe fans do. Now, if I'm a recruit and I'm not going to be a frontline starter, then I may say, well, what in the world? I might not ever play if I don't start. But, Joey, since you talk about the recruits on Coast to Coast so much with Moran and McMillan, I'll let you get in there. I just don't know if recruits and other things people care as much about stuff that maybe the fan base does.
It's weird, man. There's a lot of head scratching that people have about, why does this player think he can go fit in with this roster and play immediately? That's the same reason a lot of these players, these blue chip players, think that they can go play at an empty roster and make a difference immediately. There's just a different mindset with a high level recruit that most of us lay people and normal human beings can't understand. It's a competitive drive. It's a bit of how they see themselves. All of those things make a difference. I don't think it's going to affect any of these recruits. And I also want to go back to, if those three guys come back next year, I'll shave my head live on the show. Like I'll go full Tommy Ashley and slick my head live on the show if those three guys come back, because it ain't happening.
I'm gonna see if I can get another NIL deal, and I'm getting a rusty razor.
So first you want to shoot me in the back, now you want to give me tetanus. What have I done to you, sir? You always accuse me of being surly, man. You've wished harm on me twice on the show today.
Man, eat a Snickers.
Sweet Lord, you're the one wanting people to die. Good Lord. Anyway, no, those three guys ain't coming back. But as far as how it affects I don't think it affects the roster as much as you think. Where it makes a difference is the number of bodies that UNC can bring in. Where it makes a difference is the number of scholarships that UNC will have available, either for the transfer portal. Maybe a kid shows up late on the radar this year for the 24 class, or maybe there's a potential reclass coming down the pike. I don't think any of those are probable except for the portal thing, but that's where the actual change happens, not necessarily in recruits playing time as much as it is portal additions.
Yeah, and let me say this, and somebody, Jordan in the chat, says, does the fact that Hubert not use the bench eventually start hurting recruiting? Recruits do not sign up expecting to ride the bench or expecting to be on the bench. They all expect to start, and they all expect, some guys expect to start immediately. Some guys expect to bide their time and then start. I don't know if that's an issue. And quite frankly, we don't know if that's an issue early in the process.
It's, there's something I have learned since I've been, since working with Sherelle and Sean, is that these things, you do have lulls during the season. Over the course of a year, when a team's not performing the way anybody in that locker room wants to perform, there are guys that think about leaving. Everybody does that. Every team does that. Jawad talked about it a second ago when he was going through his struggles during the 8-20 season. I mean, those guys thought about leaving. Everybody, when you're facing adversity, considers just getting out of it. It's human nature. So all that being said, there might be a guy right now that is thinking about having his foot out the door that in a month could change. Or, by the beginning of the summer session, he could change his mind again. So just because things look a certain way right now, good or bad, doesn't mean that's the way they're going to be when the deadline for those things comes. Nia, give me one more.
So kind of piggybacking off kind of your point and that previous question, if I'm a UNC recruit, seeing how the bench players are being utilized this year, kind of what's my motivation in coming to Chapel Hill?
If I'm a recruit looking at this team and I know that you're going to have some guys leave, I'm looking at an opportunity that I'm going to come in, I'm going to play 35 minutes a night.
Yep. I'm going to have a chance. And that's something that, again, we've been talking about things that Hubert Davis says that he's always said, I can't tell you when it's going to be, but I'm going to give you your chance. If I'm a recruit coming in next year, Zayden High, Simeon Wilcher, I'm looking at the guys that aren't playing right now on the bench and thinking, okay, I've got just as much of a shot as those guys do. Yep. I've got just as much of a chance as minutes as those guys do. And I think the same could be said for any potential reclasses. I don't like reclasses personally. I don't think they help the player. I don't think they work out with any regularity. But that's going to come into play too. If I'm a recruit, I'm looking at just playing time available, especially with the vacuum that's going to happen at the end of the year with players being out of eligibility or opting out of their eligibility. That's going to matter. So that to me is more important than looking at the way the roster's playing right now and deciding how that fits me. I'm like you, Tommy. I see that right now as, man, I could step in next year and potentially earn a starting job depending on how I play when I get to campus.
And the thing about it is that you have a safety net with the transfer portal, right?
Yep.
You come in.
If it doesn't work, you're out.
Yeah, you can just dip. And I don't like that. It doesn't build much of a, Curran Walton, for example. Curran Walton would help this team. He struggled defensively at times. Well, he'd fit in, to be quite frank, but he could shoot the basketball. But he goes to Texas Tech, of all places.
Right.
And everybody.
And is playing the same amount of minutes.
Playing the same amount of minutes. He's shooting roughly 41% from 3-point. He averages 4 points a game. Maybe he's happier there, and I hope he is. But what's the point of going there? I mean, I don't understand the mindset of wanting to get out of something once you chose it. But there's that opportunity that if I come in, I don't play, it didn't work out. That'll be interesting, Joey. And this is sort of an elephant in the room, and all of us sitting here, and I wonder how many other people actually think about this stuff, is we talk about the transfer portal, right?
Yep.
Hubert Davis has one class in so far.
Yep.
Anytime there's a coaching change, I certainly expect guys to transfer, especially now. Because it's a different, I don't care whether Hubert Davis or whoever's been on the coaching staff for 100 years. Things change when there's a coaching change, a head coaching change. Yep. The issue becomes, the questions arise, is if guys I recruited leave.
Decide they want to leave. Yeah. That's a different animal.
Because then those are guys that I went into their, and I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm just saying these are things to watch for. If I come in and I start coaching your rec league team and your son decides he doesn't want to play because he doesn't like me compared to the old coach, that's fine. That happens everywhere. But if I put together a team and then we go in and we play and then those guys start leaving, that's when the issues are. That's when there's red flags. So I think we're a long ways from that. But somebody asked in the chat, why would I want people to leave that still had eligibility? At some point, it's just time.
It's time. It's you've given your all at it. You've tried it out. I think it's a great way of putting it, dude.
Yeah, mutual parting of ways. And it happens. It happens in coaching. It happens in roster management and all that. It happens everywhere. And the cool thing about it is, with the transfer portal, you can go and play.
Well, and again, I do think at some point the NCAA will tweak it so that, not that you have to sit out a year, but there will be some modifications made to immediate eligibility, how many times a guy can transfer, et cetera, et cetera. But now there's always that on the table, and that's kind of the great equalizer, where if a guy feels like the grass is greener, then they can go try a different situation. And I'm for that. I'm very much a players' rights supporter. Like, if you feel like you can do better and get more out of your talent going somewhere else, man, go get it. Get it how you live.
Yeah, and Mac Brown says it all the time.
They help them.
It's like, we'll do everything we can to help you, because what you don't want is you don't want people that are not playing that are unhappy.
Right. Well, that's potentially cancerous to your program.
Yeah, that's the issue. Then you get parents poo-pooing people, and you get all that kind of mess going on. And unfortunately, social media has given everybody an equal voice.
Everybody's got a voice. Everybody's got a keyboard.
Yeah, and so I think the portal is a wonderful thing to remake not only your roster but your culture, and also prevent negative culture.
Yeah.
Because nobody wants anybody to stick around if you're not wanted or if it's not working. It's time to move on. And so I think that's why next year we can start talking about Hubert Davis's culture at Carolina.
There's no more rope there. There's no more transition period, because at that point it's his.
Yeah, and that's when you own it. And we've asked people, I asked Scott Forbes, this is your program now. You're 3 years into this Carolina baseball deal. This is your program. And he wanted to turn it and say, well, it's North Carolina's program. But no, it's the head coach's thing. So it'll be interesting to watch over the next 12 to 24 months.
Hey, man, if nothing else, we've learned here at Inside Carolina that the transfer portal has definitely given us something to talk about in the summertime, because it's immediately made that, first month or 6 weeks after the season quite intriguing about who can North Carolina potentially add, who is considering North Carolina, who's North Carolina going to lose, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, we're kind of running this segment a little long, but shout out to VCU Hill in the chat. He says, how long before school decides to recruit the portal 100%, not do high school recruiting? I don't think you can do that, but here's the kicker with the portal. If I get a transfer in, a freshman or sophomore transfer in, he is stuck.
Yep.
until he's a graduate transfer. Whereas if I recruit a high school guy, then he's free to go. So that's where the portal is beneficial to you. And that's why you see teams that like to get younger transfers because then they are there and they're guaranteed to be there because there's nowhere to go. So it's a weird dynamic. It is not only do you have to coach a sport, not only do you have to coach basketball, you got to coach, that deal that where Dean Smith said, some coach said, not name them, leader of men. That's where you really got to be these days, because it's just so much more to just teaching somebody how to play basketball or football or whatever.
Well, appreciate you guys giving us the questions. It's always a better segment when you guys ask good questions. So thanks to everybody who participated in this segment. Neil will pick our winner during the break, and we'll announce it when we come back. Take our last break of the show. He's Tommy Ashley. I'm Joey Powell. Intern Neil with us today. Daniel on the board, I think, just got here. Daniel's here making sure things work for us today. We appreciate him. We'll be right back for our last segment of Inside Carolina Live on 97.9 WCHL.
This is Ryan Taylor, and you're listening to Inside Carolina Live.
Hi, my name is Marlo Shank, and my dad, Jeff, is a partner in the First Watch Daytime Cafe. As a family full of Tar Heels, having a First Watch in Chapel Hill makes it even more fun to go to games and meets to root for Carolina. First Watch has amazing staff that treat their customers superbly. I'm a picky eater, but I always love going to First Watch. I recommend the pancakes and sweet tea. Chapel Hill has a special place in my heart, and I hope to be in the UNC graduating class of 2031. Go Heels!
This is Greg Overbeck for the Chapel Hill Restaurant Group. 35 years ago, we opened Squid's Restaurant and Oyster Bar in Chapel Hill. We were determined to serve the best seafood we could find, and we formed lasting relationships with several companies on the North Carolina coast that could deliver fresh fish, clams, and oysters every day of the week. Whether you like your seafood steamed, grilled, fried, or broiled, we've got you covered. And bottles of wine are half price on Tuesdays, and fresh Maine lobsters are 25% off every Wednesday. Check out our menu at squidsrestaurant.com.
I'm Scott Cummings from Dynamic Electric, where we're ready to take care of all your electrical needs for home or business. We want working with Dynamic Electric to be easy. We strive to provide hassle-free service, quality electrical repairs, and prompt responses. Our experienced electricians are licensed, bonded, and insured. The best part, we're locally owned and operated right down the road in Hillsboro, and here to help you. Give us a call to schedule a service visit or discuss your next project.
Dynamic Electric, local, reliable, experienced. Online at dynamic-electric.com.
I'm Jim McNeely of Surf Pro, South Durham and Orange County. It's the season of love, and our staff is working harder than ever to serve the community we love. This month, we are celebrating extraordinary individuals in our community with our 3rd annual Black History Achievement Awards. Follow Surf Pro, South Durham and Orange County on Facebook to feel the love and to join our celebration. From mitigation to restoration to reconstruction, let us make your mess like it never even happened.
The Revive Chapel Hill Recovery and Resiliency Plan is an initiative of the town of Chapel Hill. It sets out to rebuild Chapel Hill as a more equitable, inclusive, and vibrant local economy. Its focus is on job growth, talent development, office space development, and stronger retail support. This path from recovery to long-term resiliency will be marked with small victories and big wins that occur over time as the town and its many partners work together to rebuild Chapel Hill. To learn more about Revive Chapel Hill, visit open2.biz/revive.
You're listening to Inside Carolina Live with Tommy Ashley and Joey Powell on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL, the flagship station for Tar Heel sports.
Inside Carolina Live. Wrapping up, winding down, getting ready to get out of here today. Appreciate everybody who's been a part of the show. Charlotte Millen, Greg Barnes, and Jawad Williams joining us from Japan. That's a heck of a hike. We appreciate all you guys being a part of the show, too. Tomorrow, UNC at NC State. And Wednesday, the Tar Heels have a 9 o'clock game at Notre Dame. So they're on the road for a little bit and come back home next Saturday against Virginia. Tommy, we talked about it earlier today. I just don't see anything from this North Carolina team that makes me think they're going to play well in Raleigh tomorrow. I'm willing to be wrong. I would love to be wrong. I don't see it. I mean, this is more about NC State's finally got a good team. They're getting healthy. They've got all the motivation in the world. And this North Carolina team has not done well against adversity.
I don't know. They've always seemed to play pretty good over there, and they've always seemed to get up for an NC State game. If my memory serves, Puff Johnson was really good over there last year. That's relevant to the discussions we've been having as far as tweaks in the lineup. What got me and what was interesting to me is watching how they reacted at Duke in that environment. I thought Pete Nance looked shook during that Duke game.
Yep.
And I don't think Carolina really, at least early, dealt with it. And it's going to be bad in PNC. And like Jawad said, it is rude over there. I've been in that building. I've been in Reynolds. I've been in Cameron. It is a different environment. And Maryland, Cole Fieldhouse. I mean, it's one thing to have people just yelling at you and saying stupid stuff.
Normal.
It's enough to have just people frothing at the mouth, mad, and that's how it is in PNC. And look, I don't hate it. I'm all for the home court advantage. You can't throw stuff like folks are prone to do, but I just think watching how they react to that environment will be interesting.
Yeah, it's one of those things where there's a really wild environment, and then there's also just hate. And okay, whatever. It's who they are. It's how they live. Fine. But it's just like it's been all season with this team. You've got to rise above it. And I don't know that they have it in them to rise above it tomorrow at 1:00. I would love to share with folks what Vegas thinks the odds are, but I haven't been able to find it. If anybody in the chat here wants to drop it in, feel free. But I haven't seen it. I haven't seen a line yet for this game, so I got no idea what it's going to look like for informational purposes only. Tommy, being hypothetical here, what does it take for North Carolina to win tomorrow? We've said 1,000 times, just make shots. Is that enough against an NC State team that's going to extend their defense? NC State's going to pressure North Carolina's guards. You could argue they were doing a good job of it before Terquavion Smith went out in Chapel Hill. But how can North Carolina actually find a way to win this game tomorrow, despite all the other noise?
Free throw shooting would help.
That's fair.
And shout out to Michael Coe. I've been thinking about it, but Michael Coe on Twitter, WCHL's own Michael Coe, put in there Carolina's under 70% from the foul line since the NC State game. They have 36 of 39, which is ridiculous.
That's absurd, yes.
And they were under 70%. You lose 4 and 5 point games and you're shooting 50, 55, 60% from free throw line, it's usually that does it. They got to make more shots. I mean, if they go 5 for 30, they're going to lose. That's a given. But they can shoot 35, 40% from three and then shoot 50% from the foul line and still lose. And I think that is an easy thing for them to fix. There's no excuse in missing free throws, none.
I also think bench production plays a role. On that last game, Jalen Washington produced 1 point, and the rest came from the starters. I think they had 3 Tar Heels who had over double digit games. So I think that bench production, seeing that production from whether it's Puff Johnson, DeMarco Nunn, Jalen Washington, even Seth Trimble, if he can make shots, or we can just rely on his defensive capabilities. But I think offensive production from that bench will be critical, because with the increased depth that NC State has, it's not the same team that North Carolina faced on January 21st, whenever that date was. So I think that is critical towards winning this game.
I think if it's bench, it's Puff. Somebody in the chat said DeMarco Dunn's improved since last year. Yeah, I agree with that. He's probably one that's gotten better, but he still struggles defensively. And who's he going to guard? Because he can't guard Joyner, and he's not guarding Smith. Leakey can only guard one of those guys. The issue, and I said this, and this is why Puff's so important, and it's a great point you make about the bench, is whether he starts or comes off the bench or whatever. is that Carolina has been playing 3-on-5 offensively.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been playing 3-on-5 offensively with 2 of those 3. Granted, Caleb's been a little bit better shooting, but 2 of those 3 just not shooting anywhere close to necessary. So now you back down to who can give you a bucket when you need it. And Armando has struggled against guys that are bigger and more physical than him. And DJ Burns, I don't care what anybody says. I like that guy. You give me that old school center.
You know what you're getting from him.
You give me that. And Dewey and I went back and forth back in the first Carolina NC State game. And Dewey said, that dude can't score enough points to beat you by himself. And then he goes out and he puts up, 35 against somebody? Carolina cannot stop him. And how many people on North Carolina's team can you say cannot be stopped? That is an issue for me playing NC State that nobody wants to talk about because you always want to talk about Taquavian Smith and Jarkel Joyner. I think Burns is the difference in that team. If you got Kevin Keats to admit it, I think he would admit that Burns has been the difference maker because he is pretty much or close to a guaranteed bucket unless he gets in foul trouble. And Carolina doesn't play that floppy defense that a lot of teams play that's gotten Burns in trouble. What do you think, Joey?
He's found money for them. I mean, DJ Burns has found money for them. That's you talk about the transfer portal, and Kevin Keats deserves all the praise in the world for finding him out of Wofford, I believe. Was a all-conference player last year in the SoCon and mid-major, and they bring him up, and he's absolutely done well, especially considering he wasn't starting at the beginning of the year, and they've had some injuries. I mean, he's been found money for them. Winthrop, I'm sorry.
One of those W schools.
One of those W schools in the Big South or whatever it is. But he's found money for them, and you know what you're getting out of him, and you can talk about his conditioning or whatever. But I mean, when that dude gets the ball, he's the guy that's the same that's built just like that. You find the why that you can't stop him.
Yeah,
I mean, he's going to get his shot off, and you just got to hope he misses it.
And if you try to dig in and get the ball out of his hands, he's good enough to hit Morcell or Smith or Joyner. And if those guys are hitting threes,
you're done.
Yeah, that's when it's over against NC State because North Carolina has to struggle to find buckets. And without any transition offense, without any forcing turnovers and getting runouts, Carolina has to fight and struggle to score points. And they've shown the propensity, big word, to give them right back so easily. Like
everything is difficult with them. Nothing that team does on offense is easy. I mean, you've seen times where getting Armando Bacot the ball in good post position is a bucket, but they even make that look hard. Getting him the ball on an easy entry pass looks hard, especially now that teams have recognized this is the formula. Double team or front Armando Bacot, sag off of Leaky Black or Pete Nance, and force hard shots, force deep shots for RJ Davis and Caleb Love or whoever else is on the ball. And North Carolina cannot seem to shake that. Until they do, or until they find a way to get shots outside of those parameters, this is who they are. So anyway, shout out to everybody who's been a part of the chat today. This has been a fun show. I did not think it was going to be a fun show just because having to discuss things and then fearing for my life because Tommy wants me dead. But it's been interesting to talk about these different things and consider the adversity North Carolina is going to face tomorrow. Tommy, I think you're right. It is going to be a feverish atmosphere, but who knows? Maybe they'll surprise you and I. Will have something different to talk about. But Tar Heels tomorrow, 1:00. In Raleigh at NC State will certainly be a contest. I want to give a special shout out to Mia, to Full-Time Daniel, to Tommy Ashley, my co-host. He's a great human being. I don't care what anybody else says. We'll be back next week.
Say. You're the one that always
same time, same place on Inside Carolina Live on 97.9 The Hill, WCHO.
As a Farm Bureau insurance agent,